When Abram was 99 years old, and before he became Abraham, God asked him to give up the life that he knew. He would be given a new name. He would go from Abram, which means exalted father, to Abraham, father of many. That sounded good to Abram because he and his wife Sarai were childless and had wanted a family for a long, long time. If you agree to what I'm asking you, God says to Abram, if you let go of everything you know and follow my plan, I will make you have so many offspring you can't count them, like the stars in the sky or the sand on the beach at the ocean. You will be the ancestor of kings, the source of whole races of people, the beginning of a new kind of humanity. And that sounded good to Abram. Was it too good to be true? Would there be some kind of a catch? Well, yes. In order to gain all of this, what Abram had to do was to let go of who he was, of what he had taken a lifetime to build, and he had to be willing to start a new life that he wasn't given any details about. And he would only be able to trust that God would provide for him, that God loved him and wanted the best for him. Sounds a little like he's going into a witness protection program, doesn't it? But can you imagine being that age and doing that? Can you imagine being any age and doing that? Anytime we think that life is going in a particular direction and it suddenly shifts on us, that is a tough adjustment. As it was for Abram, as it is for Peter when Jesus tells the disciples that he, Jesus, must suffer and be rejected and be killed and rise again. Because that was not the plan. That was not the direction the disciples thought that things were going. And Peter will not hear of it. That can't happen to you, Lord, he says. And Jesus is more stern with Peter in this moment than he is any other time that Peter messes up. Even after Peter has, even after Peter has denied him 3 times, Jesus doesn't chastise him as he does now. Get behind me, Satan, Jesus says. You are setting your mind not on God's things, but on human things. Peter sees Jesus as a person who needs to survive, the most basic of human instincts. And there is nothing more important than this. How else will Jesus be able to continue his wonderful teachings and his amazing healings? How else will he be able to bring others to God? How else can he be the Messiah whose coming they had hoped for and dreamed for so many years? Don't give your life away, the tempter whispers in our ear. The kind of Messiah that Peter is looking for is the same kind of Messiah Jesus was tempted to do in the wilderness. And when the tempter whispers in our ears, don't give your life away, that sounds like something that God would want. But in fact, it leads to things that God definitely does not want. It's something that Martin Luther spent his whole life contemplating, the difference between what God has in mind for the Messiah and what we do. He calls it the difference between a theology of glory and a theology of the cross. The theology of glory prefers accomplishment to suffering, and glory to shame, and even Satan's way to God's way. But God's way cannot ignore or deny the cross. The cross proclaims that God's mercy is given to sinners, not the righteous. They don't need it. That God's strength is shown in weakness, not in a display of power over the Roman government. That God's wisdom is hidden in parables and mystery, not set out in self-help slogans. God's life is shown in death. So, Jesus says that those who want to save their life, that's the theology of glory, will lose it, while those who lose their life for the sake of the gospel, the theology of the cross, will find it. God doesn't conform to our expectations or desires. God is often found in uncertainty and danger and suffering, precisely where human wisdom says that God should be absent. Jesus says he will have to undergo great suffering, be rejected and killed, and after 3 days rise again. This story is central to who he is and what God's plan is. When he says he will have to, he simply means that's God's plan, the cross. And so every Christian sanctuary has a cross in it. They are made of rough wood or beautiful smooth wood. They can be made with stained glass or polished brass or twisted iron. They might portray Jesus' body and suffering, or they are empty and declare he is alive. It is the one symbol that tells the gospel story in just an image, and it's at the heart of what we believe. Jesus died on the cross to save the world. And just as Jesus said he would, he did it to fulfill God's plan. Then Jesus says that all of us who follow and want to be disciples must take up our crosses. Where are our crosses symbolized? Sometimes we wear them around our neck or as earrings or other jewelry. Sometimes they are on the wall, such as in the church in Westfield, where we come up the stairs to go to worship, and there are our crosses. All of the New Testament tells us the cross is the visible symbol of the good news of the saving love of Jesus. And we celebrate that good news that is both for us and for us to share. Mark has put this teaching moment with Jesus' first disciples and with all who want to become disciples, to tell us that discipleship involves following Jesus and giving up our lives in sacrificial love. That is part of God's plan too. Blessed to be a blessing. In order to do this, we have to give up trying to please ourselves. It happens to most people. You can only do things for yourself so long. It's like eating too much candy. You reach a point where you don't want it anymore. You realize that there is nothing more you can buy or eat, or no place you can travel that will truly fill your soul. These things can be fun, but they don't last. Only love lasts, and love only happens when we are able to put someone else ahead of ourselves. That's the model that Jesus offers us instead. Don't worship yourself, he says. Don't spend all your time trying to fix yourself or please yourself or even just stay alive. But instead, give your life away. He's not telling us to take our life or to throw it away. He is telling us to hand it over to God, to give it willingly and voluntarily. Lose ourselves and that fear that death will be the end of everything. And when we do that, we will end up finding ourselves. Take up your cross, and in following Christ, you will find out, as he did, who you truly are. And that's exactly what Jesus is doing. He knows that the moment he chooses to give up what he could have been, he has actually found the secret to who he really is. Where would we be? What would have happened to us? What would have become of the world if Jesus had not taken up his cross and followed God? So, when you come to that moment, when you are ready to hand your life over to God, follow Jesus' example. Give God your time, give God your money, give God your deepest thoughts and dreams. Let God use them for something which includes you, but includes more than just you. Those who save their lives will lose them, Jesus said. And those who lose their lives for me and the sake of the gospel will save them. Sounds like an oxymoron, but it is the truth. It is God's truth. When you have learned to give your life away in service to God and to others, when you have picked up your cross, which is heavy and hard work and requires more than you think you have in you to give, then you will discover the height, the depth, the farthest reaches of God's love and power. You will not have lost your ability to teach and heal and bring others to God. You will have instead found it. But first, in order to do that, you must empty yourself. Empty yourself of all that is you and that gets in the way. Remember, a cup of coffee that is full can take no more. If you are full of yourself, God will wait until you can empty yourself and make room. God can wait a long time. And then when you are empty, God will fill you. To God be the glory forever. Amen.